The Great Ruler Episode 129 Explanation. Up in the sky, Chen was looking at Chen, who was covered in lightning, with a cold gaze. He was reading with his eyes. The words Chen previously said made him blink his eyes, but soon, a mocking smile lifted from the corner of his lips. Oh? Really? Clearly, he didn't believe that Chen could possess a sovereign sea. After all, no matter what sort of luck he encountered, it was impossible for a third-grade spirit disaster to establish his sovereign sea in such a short amount of time. However, Chen did not reply to Chen's mocking laughter and only responded with a smile. Shortly after, a cold arc lifted on his face as his pupils that were filled with lightning grew even colder as he suddenly formed seals with his hands. Whoosh! A scarlet pillar of light soared into the horizon from Chen's head, and at the same time, a palpitating baleful aura spread out between the heavens and earth. It was like an ominous primordial beast being born. Everyone raised their heads as they looked. Within the scarlet pillar of light stood a sizable demonic pillar. The surface of the demonic pillar had traces of age. The cause for some of the ferocious-looking traces could not be determined. However, anyone could figure out that this great Meru demonic pillar had experienced a bitter and astonishing battle. Bizarre runes could be vaguely seen on the demonic pillar. Those runes were like chains as they coiled around the pillar. From the looks of it, they seemed to be restricting the great Meru demonic pillar. Those runes were naturally seals done by Chen using that mysterious immortal page in his body. After all, the great Meru demonic pillar was too ominous, and it was impossible for the past Chen to control it. Thus it could only be sealed. However, the seals, it's time to remove them. Cold light flashed across Chen's eyes as his figure moved. He appeared before the great Meru demonic pillar as he formed hand seals with one hand and slapped the demonic pillar. Buzz! A ripple spread from Chen's palm mark as the immortal page hidden in his aura sea burst forth with fainter buzzing sound. Dark purple lights were emitted and gushed from Chen's palm. Remove seal. A faint voice resounded from Chen's heart. TSK. TSK. The dark purple seal on the surface of the great Meru demonic pillar was swiftly dissolving. Boom! As the seal dissolved, the great Meru demonic pillar intensely trembled, since the 100-foot demonic pillar was no longer subjected to Chen's control and swiftly expanded. Looking from far away, it was like a towering pillar that pierced the sky. Along with the baleful aura emitting from the demonic pillar, it was expanding at a rapid speed, instantly dyeing the entire region in red. That baleful aura made the hearts of others palpitate. It was so much so that even those deans of the various academies in midair had their facial expressions slightly changed from the dreadful baleful aura. Dean Taikan was also watching this scene with narrowed eyes. A smear of astonishment flashed across his eyes as he muttered, trying to unseal the great Meru demonic pillar? Such a primordial ominous artifact is not something that can be so easily controlled. The great Meru demonic pillar was the most important treasure of the demonic dragon palace. Thus Dean Taikang had some knowledge about it. He was also well aware of its power. Back when they battled the demonic dragon palace, if they had fully restored this great Meru demonic pillar, it wouldn't be easy for them to obtain victory, even with the help of the Northern Sea Dragon. And right now, the great Meru demonic pillar was in Chen's hands, but with his current strength, can he control it? If he failed to control this ominous artifact, he might be devoured by it instead. Everyone in this region was looking at the demonic pillar, with its torrential baleful aura, that was in the sky. Chen had also raised his head as he looked at the sizable demonic pillar before him. After unsealing it, red cracks were appearing on the surface of the demonic pillar. Those cracks were like the mouths of demons as they continuously spurt out startling a baleful aura, revealing the most sinister look of the great Meru demonic pillar. Chen's figure moved, and he appeared above the great Meru demonic pillar. Boom! The instant he landed on it, the demonic pillar jolted as a surge of baleful aura turned into a bloodlight that engulfed him. It was impossible for such an ominous artifact to be tamed so easily. Its origin wasn't simple. It was natural for such a powerful ominous artifact to possess spirituality. In the past, when it was sealed by Chen, it could only stay latent, and now that it was unsealed, it was naturally no longer willing to be controlled by Mu Chen. HMPH, facing the devouring nature of the Great Meru demonic pillar, Mu Chen issued a cold snort, since he had long expected this. He heavily stomped his foot as dark purple runes swiftly spread out from his feet, and as the runes spread out, the baleful aura withered down like waves. Although the Great Meru demonic pillar was overbearing and violent, he possessed the immortal page in his body that could restrain its power. After suffering the attack from Mu Chen, the Great Meru demonic pillar finally behaved and no longer tried to devour Mu Chen. Since you're behaving now, then unleash your power and lend it to me. Mu Chen felt the silent Great Meru demonic pillar as he smiled. Shortly after, he sat down on the demonic pillar and lifted both of his hands. Scarlet-red baleful aura soared towards the horizon as it formed a corporeal red pillar of light that engulfed Mu Chen. TSK. TSK. An endless supply of baleful aura was pouring into Mu Chen's body. It was like a ferocious dragon that charged into Mu Chen's aura sea. After the seal was undone, the Great Meru demonic pillar was several folds more violent compared to before. The thickness of the baleful aura was far greater than in the past. Violent and vast baleful aura continuously poured into his aura sea and started to dye it in red. Gradually, the accommodation of his aura sea reached the limit as an intense pain surged. However, Mu Chen did not move in the slightest from the intense pain. He still poured the baleful aura from the Great Meru demonic pillar into his aura sea without concern. TSK, TSK. The intense pain continued to surge, and when his aura sea could not contain any more baleful aura, the center of his aura sea was gradually twisting, and when the distortion reached the limit, a tiny black spot suddenly appeared. That black spot was tiny, but a peculiar ripple was being emitted. It was as if a bizarre space was being hidden in the black spot. The instant the black spot appeared, a terrifying suction force burst out, which made the baleful aura in his aura sea to whistle in a moment and was devoured by that tiny black spot. In just a few moments, his aura sea was emptied once again without the slightest spiritual energy present. At the peak of the demonic pillar, Mu Chen's body finally trembled as he raised his head and smiled at Xuan, who was in midair, far away. He stood up and slowly opened his hands. Boom! Space suddenly distorted behind Mu Chen as a blood-red ocean slowly appeared. It was a similarly vast spiritual energy ocean, except that it was dyed in red, almost like converging blood, looking extremely bloody. No one paid attention to how bloody it was, but all of them were looking at the blood-red ocean in the distorted space behind Mu Chen. Some of them were even overwhelmed with shock. Sovereign Sea. Mu Chen has actually established a sovereign sea as well. Big brother Mu Chen established a sovereign sea as well. Yushi was pleasantly surprised when she witnessed that scene. Yi Qingling and the rest also had a strange expression on their faces. After all, before he entered the Mirror of Judgment, Mu Chen's strength was only at the first-grade spirit disaster, but now, he had actually established a sovereign sea in just a step. Wasn't that a little too fearsome? That's not the sovereign sea established by Mu Chen. Lingxi lightly shook her head as she continued. He only established a sovereign source and filled it up with the baleful aura of the Great Meru demonic pillar. However, this strength doesn't belong to it, so it can't grow without end. This sovereign sea can only exist for a short period of time and will disappear, which is precisely his aim. The so-called sovereign source was the primary form of the sovereign sea. However, it required one to perfect it with their own spiritual energy to form a genuine sovereign sea. But, right now, Mu Chen didn't have that luxury of time, so he had to use another method. By borrowing the power of the Great Meru demonic pillar to fill up the sovereign source, he made a fake sovereign sea. But, at this point of time, it wasn't part of his concern if the sovereign sea was real or fake, he just needed its strength. After he possessed a sovereign sea, Xuan's advantage would be non-existent. With the Nona lightning rune physique and the sovereign sea, Mu Chen was genuinely invincible beneath the sovereign realm. The scarlet-red sovereign sea was rolling the distorted space. Mu Chen slowly lifted his head as he looked at Xuan, whose expression was dark at the moment. The smear of a cold arc rose on the corner of Mu Chen's lip as he extended his hand out and bent his fingers, making a provoking gesture. The youth was standing on top of the sizable demonic pillar with one scarlet-red eye and another one with flickering lightning, along with black lightning coiling around his body. An indescribable pressure slowly spreads out, and compared to Ji Xian, it was even more powerful. Right now, Mu Chen was like a killing god as he intimidated the entire field. Mu Chen stood on the great Meru demonic pillar as the baleful aura swept out in this region. The pressure from the moment it burst made everyone hold their breath. Everyone had their heads raised up as they looked at the towering slender silhouette. His face was filled with coldness and killing intent, coldly staring at Ji Xian from far away with a scarlet red eye and the other one flickering with lightning as he calmly said, "There wasn't a result back then, let us put an end to things now." Ji Xian's gaze was dark as he slowly replied, "Looks like I did a little extra in the mirror of judgment, which gave you a fortune." Judging from the current situation, Mu Chen clearly obtained a considerable fortune when he was trapped in the spiritual energy vortex. Thus, giving leaps and bounds to his strength, reaching third-grade spirit disaster, and even established his own sovereignty at this moment, and standing on the same level as him right now. When Mu Chen gave no comment to his speech, the chill in his eyes grew colder. "But fortunately, you have not disappointed me. Otherwise, my fear for you would have been a joke." Ji Xian slowly grasped his hand, and divine light gathered, forming into a beautiful, divine long spear in a flash. The shape of this spear was very unusual as there was a pair of wings unfolding on the body of the spear. Those wings looked similar to that of an angel's. Vigorous and blazing divine light spread out in circles with formidable ripples being emitted from it. Angel spear. Din Taikang blinked his eyes when he saw the long spear in Ji Xian's hand that was emitting powerful ripples and spoke with a faint tone, "What a huge hand from the Saint Spiritual Academy, even giving the low-ranked divine artifact of the Academy to Ji Xian." Ha ha, Ji Xian displayed an outstanding performance in the Academy and with contributions. Thus, we gave him the Angel Spear. Din Chensheng of the Saint Spiritual Academy responded with a slight smile. But even though this angel spear is indeed formidable, compared to that demonic pillar of Mu Chen's, it's still a little inferior. Looks like the Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy spent a great amount of effort as well. Clearly, he didn't feel that the great Meru demonic pillar was obtained by Mu Chen himself and was bestowed upon by the Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy. Din Taikang sneered and wasn't bothered to explain much as he shifted his gaze onto the two in midair. The atmosphere in that area was increasingly hostile. Everyone looked at the sky with gazes of excitement and expectations. The two before them probably stood at the highest peak amongst all the spiritual academies of their generation. Their confrontation would definitely be the fight for the championship and would also be the brightest fight in this tournament. Buzz. Under the countless stares, Ji Xian gripped his long spear tighter, and in the next instant, his gaze grew abruptly cold. His body trembled, disappearing from his spot. Boom! But in the next instant he disappeared. Mu Chen threw out a fist without any hesitation towards the space before him. Rumble. Black lightning frantically surged as lightning mixed into the vast spiritual energy. It was like an enraged dragon roaring. The offensive power behind that fist could even cause a third-grade spirit disaster to suffer grave injuries. In the empty space, an extremely sharp long spear tore its way out with divine light surging. The overbearing blaze even caused distortions in the area. The long spear swept across, before the piercing spear tip swiftly clashed against the fist enveloped in lightning. Boom! A metallic collision rang out. A dreadful gale swept out from the fist and spear, spreading out visible layers of fluctuations. Mu Chen's body did not move in the slightest as he looked up ahead. The spax was a little distorted, and Ji Xian's silhouette was nowhere in sight. Only a long spear had pierced through space. Meaningless probing, is there still any meaning for it? Mu Chen maintained indifference as he threw another punch forth. That punch was similar to lightning as it streaked across the horizon and swiftly bombarded the empty space with an indescribable speed. Rumble. Lightning exploded in the emptiness and a figure was sent flying away. The figure was pushed back a dozen of steps in the air, before he could stabilize himself. Everyone directed their gazes over and saw Ji Xian, who was wearing a dark expression, wielding that long spear. HMPH. Ji Xian snorted with a cold gaze as the look in his eyes turned heavy, before he formed hand seals with both hands. The space behind him distorted as myriads of light exploded from the sovereign sea that was filled with divine light. Shortly after, the sovereign sea violently whistled, and many rays of divine light shot out. Sacred light art, prison of the angels. Along with Ji Xian's cold bark resounding, countless rays of divine light converged into hundreds of divine light humanoid figures. The appearance of those humanoid figures wasn't clear, but they all had a pair of wings flapping behind them. Every single one of those divine light figures was emitting powerful spiritual energy ripples that weren't inferior to spirit disaster experts. Innumerable people inwardly smacked their lips around the golden battle stage. Ji Xian was indeed formidable to have cultivated such a profound divine art. What he did was basically no different to scattering seeds into soldiers. Just this move alone revealed the difference between the sovereign realm and spirit disaster. It wasn't something an ordinary method could compete against. If Mu Chen hadn't established his own sovereignty at this point in time, he might not even be able to fight with Ji Xian. Kill! Ji Xian's gaze was cold as the long spear in his hand trembled, and those light figures immediately charged out, whistling in the air. They formed into a formation and engulfed Mu Chen. Rustle! Rustle! Those divine angels wielded long spears made of divine light as they shot towards Mu Chen. Scram! Mu Chen's gaze grew cold as well as he stomped his feet. Countless scarlet rays of light swept out from the Scarlet Sovereign Sea and shot towards those approaching angels. However, the instant the two forces clashed, a cold arc rose on the corner of Ji Xian's lips as he changed his hand seals, Angel's Burial. Boom! 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 Earth-shattering explosions resounded as the angels suddenly exploded, forming into a terrible divine light hurricane that enveloped Mu Chen. The hurricane was approximately 1,000 feet in size, creating large cracks on the golden battle stage underneath. That terrifying commotion made innumerable people lose color on their faces. It was scarce for a confrontation of such a level to occur in the Great Spiritual Academy tournament. The divine light hurricane violently wreaked havoc as everyone had their eyes fixed on it. Under such a fearsome attack, even Mu Chen would have a hard time dealing with it, right? The divine light hurricane gradually dispersed as numerous gazes were staring at it without blinking and, shortly after, suppressed trembling commotions rang out. Even Ji Xian slightly narrowed his eyes in the sky. The hurricane faded away and up in the sky, there was still a silhouette standing in the air. It was Mu Chen. His clothes were torn apart with lightning flowing on the surface of his body and 9 lightning runes flickering on his chest. The roaring of thunder constantly rang out from him. Aside from having his clothing shattered, there weren't any injuries on Mu Chen. It was as if the offensive attack from before did no harm to him. What a fearsome physical body, someone exclaimed in astonishment and gulped a mouthful of saliva. Up in midair, the youth was naked on his upper body, his skin was radiating like silver. Although his slender figure wasn't robust or masculine, it was this frail body of his that made others feel as if he couldn't be rocked by the falling of the sky or rending of the earth. Both of Mu Chen's eyes were radiating at this moment. Even the powerful baleful aura in his body could not control the violent lightning. Both of his fists were tightly clenched as his eyes that were flickering with lightning stared at Ji Xian with indifference. It was like a deity looking at an ant from high above. If your attack is only at this level, then it's my turn. Although Mu Chen's speech was slow, it was accompanied by the roaring of lightning as it fell along with every single one of his words. The rumbling noise resonating in this region shook even the spiritual energy between the heavens and earth. Rumble. When Mu Chen finished his last word, someone detected that the sky had darkened and abruptly raised his head. Overwhelmed with shock, that person saw layers of thunderclouds in the air that had appeared who knows when. Those thunderclouds engulfed an area of a few thousand feet in radius. No one dared to breathe too heavily from the pitch-black thunderclouds. Silver lightning was flickering in the thunderclouds, like lightning dragons wriggling as they emitted great pressure. Boom! The thunderclouds moved. A massive bolt of lightning tore through the layers of clouds as it dived down. However, the direction of the lightning wasn't Ji Xian, it going to heavily strike Mu Chen. Boom! The vast lightning profoundly struck Mu Chen, but there wasn't any lightning that flowed out as it was all absorbed into Mu Chen's physical body. TSK! TSK! The black lightning started to solidify on the surface of Mu Chen's body, and in just a few breaths' time, a layer of black lightning armor was formed. It had a ferocious appearance when it appeared on Mu Chen's body. Under the lightning armor, Mu Chen's figure seemed to have swollen up by several folds, becoming a lightning giant. The fluctuations emitted from his body was extremely dreadful. One move is all I need to deal with you. Under the armor, a pair of eyes flickering with lightning fixed onto Xuan as a rumbling noise resonated between the heavens and earth. Mu Chen strode forth, and in the next instant, he had already mysteriously appeared above Xuan and threw a punch forth. That punch wasn't fancy, but it contained pure violent power. At this instant, the lightning in the thunderclouds danced along with the torrential spiritual energy that was gushing out from the Scarlet Sovereign Sea and poured into Mu Chen's arm. The Nona Rune lightning physique and the power of his Sovereign Sea were converged into a single point as he threw a simple punch forth. Boom! Space shattered with that punch. That punch made Xuan's expression instantly change. Even the deans of the various academies had exceptionally solemn expressions on their faces, since this punch of Mu Chen's actually possessed the might of a genuine sovereign realm expert. The heavens and earth seemed to have trembled at this instant. The might of this fist from Mu Chen, who he had been brewing about for so long, reached a level that even he had not expected himself. This was the perfect fusion of his physique and spiritual energy. The two surges of energy complemented one another that it might have been sufficient to slaughter any opponent beneath the cultivation of sovereign realm. Facing this punch from Mu Chen, even Xuan's expression drastically changed with a smear of horror in his eyes. Boom! Fine cracks appeared in the space under Mu Chen's fist, looking like glass that had been shattered. The fist that was flickering with dreadful lightning swiftly expanded before Xuan's eyes. He clenched his teeth as he formed seals with both of his hands. A myriad of divine light burst forth from his sovereign sea and swiftly converged before him. In just a few breaths' time, a 100-foot-wide divine shield was formed. Angel's divine shield. The divine shield was exceptionally simple and unadorned with a pair of angelic wings unfolding on top of it, giving off a strong feeling from it, as if it could withstand the most substantial impact in this world. Faced with a close-to-perfect punch of Mu Chen's, Xuan had also executed his strongest defense. Boom! When the divine shield was formed, Mu Chen's graceful punch came and heavily slammed against the shield without the slightest hesitation. Both sides clashed together. It was like a meteorite crashing onto the ground. In that instant, the heavens and earth seemed to have frozen for a moment, followed by a startling explosion that resonating in this space. Fluctuation waves that could be seen with the naked eye swept out. The shock wave swept out a few thousand feet as it flipped the sky and earth. Lightning and divine light swept out from the point of collision. Innumerable students had their eyes narrowed as they felt a stinging pain from the intense light. However, they did not shift their eyes as they were fixed onto the collision point. Such a confrontation could only be considered as earth-shattering. Boom! Under the gazes of everyone, the devastating lightning and divine light suddenly exploded and the dreadful impact swept out. After that, everyone blinked their eyes and saw a figure flying down in a miserable state onto the golden battle stage. Boom! The golden battle stage crumbled with a few 100-foot hole in it as cracks steadily spreading out. In just a few breaths, the solid golden battle stage had fully collapsed as huge rocks tumbled into the vast hole, burying it. Hiss! Many people sucked in cold air, since they were startled by the scene. After all, in the past years of Great Spiritual Academy tournament, no one had heard of a single exchange that could crumble the particular battle stage to such an extent before. Who was beaten down? But swiftly, everyone directed their attention onto the confrontation, and judging from the current situation, the one that was beaten down was naturally the one in an absolute disadvantage. This might probably be the result of this pinnacle battle. Up in midair, spiritual energy ripples still wreaked havoc that lasted for few minutes, before the lightning and divine light gradually faded away. Rustle. Everyone directed their gazes over. The sky cleared up once again, and a silhouette gradually appeared before everyone. That silhouette was donned in black lightning armor, except that the majority of the ferocious lightning armor had shattered, pieces of the powerful armor fell. It's Mu Chen. Many people widened their eyes. Although that silhouette was still covered in lightning armor, everyone recognized that familiar appearance with a glance. Excited cheers rang out in the area that the students of the Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy resided on. Every single student had their faces flushed red from the excitement as they looked at the silhouette in the sky with revere filling their eyes. Big Brother Mu Chen won. Yushi was exceptionally excited as she pulled Su Linga's arm and spoke excitedly. That fellow is indeed formidable. Su Linga nodded with a flushed face as well. Her gorgeous pair of eyes was flickering with splendor. In the corner of the battle stage, Luo Li and Wen Qingxian raised their heads, looking at that figure as well. They felt as if they were relieved from a burden. The former's gaze was filled with joy and pride. It was a mood that wouldn't appear even if she had defeated Ji Xian by herself. The latter's gaze was a little complicated. It had a little admiration and unyielding stubbornness in it. Up in the air, when the deans of the various academies witnessed this scene from high up, although they did not speak, they all had a different expression. The 5 great deans maintained silence as they quietly watched. Only Dean Qiansheng had his fist uncontrollably clenched in his sleeve. The smile that hung on his face faded by a lot. Earth-shattering commotions rang out, and the silhouette up in the sky trembled as the lightning armor started to peel off. In the end, Mu Chen's figure reappeared, as expected. His eyes returned back to pitch black as he lowered his head, looking at his fist. The surface of his fist was bloody as Ji Xian's last defense was startling powerful. Also, it returned back some of the force. If it weren't for Mu Chen's physique reaching Nona Rune Lightning physique, just that dreadful counter alone would have shattered his arm into pieces. He wasn't bothered by the clamors that resounded in the sky and stared at the collapsed battle stage. That fist earlier had already heavily injured Ji Xian, but he could not understand why he felt a little unease in his heart. The cheers in the sky lasted for a long while, before it died down as everyone shifted their gazes onto the crumbled golden battle stage. If Ji Xian did not appear, it would mark an end to the Battle of the Champion. This region finally returned peace. Mu Chen stood in the air as his gaze lightly flickered and suddenly grasped his hand. The great Meru demonic pillar soared towards the horizon, along with the torrential baleful aura, and suppressed the collapsed region of the golden battle stage in an intimidating manner. Boom! The battle stage, what was already crumbled, shattered once again. The great Meru demonic pillar descended without the slightest leniency and heavily smashed into the hole. Boom! Fragments of the golden battle stage were reduced to dust as the crack rapidly expanded. Mu Chen's decisive and ruthless move made the eyelids of many twitched. He was beating a drowning dog. However, Mu Chen wasn't bothered by the thoughts of others. After the great Meru demonic pillar suppressed down, his pupils suddenly narrowed, and his expression became exceptionally solemn as well. The dissipating spiritual energy fluctuations around him surged forth once again, and lightning flickered on the surface of his body. Mu Chen's sudden actions of arming himself to the teeth made everyone startled, but they quickly recovered from the shock and looked at the collapsed golden battle stage with fear in their eyes. Could it be that Ji Xian can still fight? Boom! A massive sound came from the crumbled golden battle stage. Even the great Meru demonic pillar that stood towering before it suddenly jolted. Boom! Boom! The vibrations became increasingly intense, and after that, the great Meru demonic pillar trembled and soared into the horizon as it shot towards Mu Chen. Mu Chen's gaze grew cold as he tapped his feet and appeared above the great Meru demonic pillar in a flash, stomping his feet as he stabilized the pillar. His pair of black pupils were looking into the deep hole with alert. Everyone's gaze gathered over, and they held their breaths, their hearts lifted to their throats. In the bottomless pit, a faint purple light appeared as it started to spread out. After that, everyone witnessed a figure gradually floating up and lightly landed on a huge stone. When that figure appeared, sounds of inhaling cold air rang out in this region. Judging from that silhouette, it was naturally Ji Xian, but the current him was different from before. The surface of his body was flashing with faint purple light, and the surface of his face also had a mysterious purple light rune. Both of his eyes turned dark purple, sharp and cold, as if these eyes were mixed with endless ferocity. He had a pair of purple hawk wings that were slowly flapping, causing the nearby space to distort along with it as well. Ji Xian wore an indifferent expression with his hands folded before his chest as he raised his head, looking at Mu Chen with splendor in his eyes, similar to looking at an ant. Mu Chen narrowed his eyes as he looked at Ji Xian, who brought him a little unfamiliar sensation. Compared to the Chen from before, it was different. Furthermore, Chen could feel a mortal danger coming from Chen that made him feel stinging pain on his skin. When Chen and Luo Li were looking at Chen, their expressions changed a little as they felt something wasn't right as well. Up in the sky, the expressions of the deans involuntarily changed a little as they looked at Chen in astonishment. Aside from Dean Qiansheng, the gazes of the four great deans were slightly flickering. There's something wrong with this Chen. Lingxi looked at Chen with a heavy expression as she suddenly spoke out. Big sister Lingxi, what's wrong with that guy? He suddenly feels so terrifying. Sana spoke shyly, her senses were exceptionally keen, and thus, she vaguely felt that Chen had become even more terrifying than before. Lingxi did not respond as she stared at Chen with a cold gaze. Under the attention of everyone, the corner of Chen's lips slowly lifted a ruthless smile. After that, he lightly stomped his feet as ripples spread out. Under the shocking gazes, everyone witnessed as the golden battle stage was reduced to dust in an instant. Li! A sharp ear-piercing hawk cry resonated in this region, and everyone witnessed a 1,000-foot purple hawk gradually appearing behind Chen. That creature had a body of a hawk, while the head of a dragon and a terrifying gush of fluctuation swept out from its body as it wreaked havoc between the heavens and earth. Everyone's eyes were surging with fright as they could feel that the large hawk behind Chen wasn't an illusion, it had a corporeal form. What Chen possessed wasn't the soul essence of a primordial sky dragon hawk but the real body of it. The sharp hawk cry resonated between the heavens and earth. The ear-piercing sound wave swept out like waves. Numerous deep cracks appeared on the floor with a dreadful pressure spreading out. Under that pressure, not to mention ordinary students, even several deans had a drastic change in their expression. That's the real body of the primordial sky dragon hawk. Several deans had a heavy expression as they exclaimed in astonishment, looking at the colossal being. It is indeed the real body of it, not the so-called soul essence, but why was a primordial sky dragon hawk hidden in Chen's body? With his strength, how could he do it? A dean spoke out in a doubtful tone. The primordial sky dragon hawk was ranked 8 on the spiritual beast records. When such powerful spiritual beast entered its maturity state, it possessed strength that could even rival sovereigns. But with Chen's cultivation, he had just established his own sovereignty, so, strictly speaking, he had not ascended to the sovereign realm yet. Thus, it was impossible for him to suppress a primordial sky dragon hawk and use its strength. Several deans exchanged looks as their expressions turned a little doubtful. The strength of that primordial sky dragon hawk probably reached the level of 4th grade sovereign. I'm afraid that there's no longer any point to continue the battle. A dean spoke helplessly as he shook his head. 4th grade sovereign, that sort of cultivation could become a dean of an ordinary spiritual academy. Even in the 5 great sovereigns, they were all influential elders. The strength far surpassed the imagination of other students. HMPH, Dean Qiansheng, isn't it cheating for your academy to do this? The primordial sky dragon hawk isn't something that belonged to Chen but was an external strength which isn't in the rules of the tournament. Up in midair, Dean Taikang's face was a little dark as he witnessed the scene and spoke upon taking a cold glance at the primordial sky dragon hawk. Dean Qiansheng smiled faintly. Dean Taitsung, this sentence of yours is wrong. The primordial sky dragon hawk isn't related to our Saint Spiritual Academy, it was by Chen himself. Furthermore, he had a lodging relationship with this primordial sky dragon hawk, he had paid a huge price to accomplish this. Lodging? The 3 other deans were slightly startled. The so-called lodging was a hazardous method as the primordial sky dragon hawk stays in a human body, however, it would continuously attempt to seize the consciousness of the host to replace it. Likewise, the host was also trying to refine it and make the strength of the beast his. This was simply a gamble of life. The moment one side loses, they would have to pay an irreversible price. Thus, generally speaking, not many people and mighty spiritual beasts would choose this method, and to the humans, who would want a time bomb in their body. As for the spiritual beasts, who would want to be in such a dangerous scenario? Thus, this relationship of lodging was sporadic. The primordial sky dragon hawk had its eyes on Chen's body, thus, it desires to seize it, and likewise, Ji Xian also had his eyes on the power of the primordial sky dragon hawk. Thus, they formed a lodging relationship, so this strength wasn't external for Ji Xian, which isn't against the rules. Dean Chen spoke with a faint smile. The three deans fell into silence. It was fine for the primordial sky dragon hawk, since Ji Xian's strength was weak. Thus, it had a certain chance of success to defeat Ji Xian. However, Ji Xian was a little decisive and ruthless, his schemes ran deep in his heart, so he must have little preparation. Otherwise, he definitely wouldn't go for such a dangerous move. Dean Taikang's face was solemn and did not speak further. Although this strength that Ji Xian had was a shortcut, it was something that he had obtained in exchange for his own life. He slightly raised his head and looked at the youth's silhouette that was in midair and sighed in his heart. Mu Chen's performance was already perfect, but who could have expected Ji Xian to have such a trump card concealed up his sleeves? That fellow, so he had a real body of the primordial sky dragon hawk within him. When Qing Xian clenched her teeth as she looked at the primordial sky dragon hawk and bitterly smiled, looks like we belittled Ji Xian. Luo Li couldn't help having her hand slightly clenched as she looked at Mu Chen's silhouette. The youth's face was calm as water, there wasn't any joy or anger written on his face, but she knew that the latter had suffered a considerable amount of shock in his heart as well. You should leave first. Luo Li spoke in a soft voice. What about you? When Qing Xian replied, startled. Mu Chen will not give up, so I will accompany him till the end. Luo Li showed a faint smile, her smile had unwavering firmness in it. That primordial sky dragon hawk's strength is comparable to 4th grade sovereign, even if you join hands with Mu Chen, it is impossible to win. When Qing Xian spoke anxiously, just give up, it's only a competition. Furthermore, anyone could tell that Ji Xian has cheated, that strength definitely isn't something that he cultivated himself. Regarding real strength, he has already lost to Mu Chen. Luo Li softly shook her head with a smile. Do you feel that Mu Chen will back off? When Qing Xian was speechless as she knew the grudges between those two. Although that fellow was gentle most of the time, there was an unusual stubbornness in his bones. So even when he knew that he could not defeat Ji Xian right now, he would probably not admit defeat. What a fool. When Qing Xian sighed, but she had to admit that the fellow was pretty good when he was stubborn. Then, let us go together. When Qing Xian gritted her teeth in the end and with the time she had earlier, she had recovered quite a bit of fighting strength. Luo Li was astonished as she looked at Wen Qing Xian, as there wasn't a reason for the latter to fight this match with them that didn't have any odds of success. When Qing Xuan's face flushed red from Luo Li's gaze as she hastily said, that fellow helped me before, and I am not an ungrateful person. Luo Li smiled with another meaning behind her gaze. However, she did not speak and only lightly nodded her head. There wasn't any noise in this region as numerous students had their mouths widened. Evidently, they were overwhelmed with shock by the primordial sky dragon hawk. Furthermore, that level of pressure had already surpassed their limits, aware that it wasn't a standard that they could come in contact with, at least not now. The Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy region was also quiet, and innumerable people had a paled expression, the joy they had on their faces vanished. Under the gazes of everyone, Ji Xian casually cracked his neck in midair with brittle bone-breaking noise resounding. He raised his head with a cold expression and looked at Mu Chen with a smile. Are you feeling despair? There wasn't any expression on Mu Chen's face as he slowly clenched his fist. The primordial sky dragon hawk raised its wild eyes and started at Mu Chen with indifference. The strength of the latter wasn't even placed in its heart and shifted its gaze onto Ji Xian and spoke with a sound that only the latter could hear. This is the fellow that forced you to summon me. Ji Xian, do you know that the more of my strength you use, I'll be able to erode your conscience further? Ji Xian faintly smiled as he responded, then hope that before I surpass you, you will be able to seize my body. However, before that, the both of us share our lives. If one of us die, so will the other. Thus, behave well and help me get rid of that fellow. As you wish. The primordial sky dragon hawk's eyes were flickering with luster as it eerily laughed, flapping its wings with radiant light shining out of it and gushed into Ji Xian's body. TSK. TSK. The hawk wings behind Ji Xian were expanding at a fast speed, and in a few breaths' time, they were already 100 feet in size. Furthermore, both of his hands turned sharp with dark purple nails that looked like daggers. Along with that, a dreadful gale of spiritual energy whistled around him that tore through the heavens and earth. Judging from the fluctuations of spiritual energy, it had already reached the actual sovereign realm level. Xuan felt the enormous energy in his body as a smear of intoxication flashed through his face. Both of his eyes had shaped sharply like a hawk as he raised his head and smiled at Chen. He flapped his wings, sweeping out with dark purple spiritual energy gales as they charged towards Chen with unparalleled might. Chen's face was grave as he clenched his fist. The great Meru demonic pillar soared into the sky and furiously dived down. Boom! The spiritual energy gales bombarded against the great Meru demonic pillar, causing the pillar to tremble before it flew out. Chen slammed his palm onto it, but the impact behind the force caused intense pain on both of his arms. The web on his palm tore apart with fresh blood flowing from it. If it wasn't for the strength of his physical body, just this alone might kill him. Right now, you're an ant in my eyes. Xuan smiled with mockery. As he finished speaking, sharp whistling of wind suddenly rang out from his rear. However, he slapped it with the back of his hand without giving it a look. The space distorted along with purple spiritual energy sweeping out. It was like a vast purple serpent that swept over. Boom! The heavy sound resonated as two silhouettes were pushed back. They were Luo Li and Wen Qingxian, who were trying to help Chen. But judging from the situation, they weren't Xuan's opponents at this moment. Rustle! Xuan flapped both of his wings, creating innumerable afterimages, and before Chen could react, piercing palm gale had already fallen onto his shoulder. Poof! His figure flew out with a mouthful of blood spurting from his mouth. Your speed is pitifully slow. He stabilized his figure as an eerie voice resounded from his back, and shortly after, another palm gale fell on him. Boom! Chen's figure was shot heavily towards the ground as he wiped the trace of blood off the corner of his lips. He looked to be in a rather miserable state, but even when he was at the passive, he still had cold killing intent in his eyes without any trace of fear or retreat. Big Brother Mu, let it go. In the Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy region, someone saw his miserable figure and felt sour in the nose. Even some girls had their eyes reddened. All along in the Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy, Chen could always maintain a confident look on his face with radiating warmth on his handsome face. This was the first time they saw Chen in such a sorry state. Although the students of the other academies did not speak, there was a smear of respect in their eyes. After all, it didn't matter if Chen won or lost, just that tenacity and perseverance he showed deserved respect. Chen's figure was in a pile of rocks. His appearance was exceptionally miserable at the moment. His hand was slightly trembling as he wiped the blood off the corner of his lips. Shortly after, a smear of savagery slowly surfaced in his eyes. Even if he were to lose to Xuan today, he would drag Xuan along with him. Then let us compete and see which of us is more ruthless. Chen muttered with a smile. His smile was fierce as he struggled to stand on the pile of rocks. Just when he was about to attack, his body went involuntarily stiff in that instant as he heard a familiar voice in his heart at this moment. TSK, little Chen, how useless are you to be beaten up to such miserable extent by a mixed chicken? That familiar voice left Chen dumbfounded as he rubbed his ears in disbelief. Wasn't that familiar voice the Nine Nether who was still evolving? This episode ends here. Thanks you for watching.